Extremely, you talk about patience. That's David Rundle, and I don't know that I could be like that.
This is how David Rundle types. Slowly, deliberately, one letter at a time.
Well, obviously he's determined, he's patient, but he also has, I think he's goal-oriented. He's able to see, what he wants to do and what he wants to accomplish, and I think that he sets out to do it and he will. And there are probably more of us who could use that. I think procrastinate is not a word that David knows. I don't think David procrastinates. Takes him a while to do it, but it's not procrastination.
It's hard for me to imagine how frustrating it must be to know what you want to say, yet have such a hard time trying to say it.
But, because of the way he types, it's impossible not to inadvertently hit other keys.
Which to most people would lead them to give up, but not David.
I don't know what happened.
David's mind is full of creative things to say, but cerebral palsy prevents his fingers from keeping up. But once he gets his thoughts written,
he has a wonderful sense of humor. He's one of my favorite people. Although, David doesn't consider himself disabled in a lot of ways, and he's not. He's slowed down, I guess is what he might say, although in a wheelchair he wasn't.
David was born in Logan, Kansas in 1958 with his umbilical cord wrapped around his throat. That cut off air to his brain, causing him to have severe cerebral palsy and epilepsy. Despite what we consider a handicap, David has led a pretty normal life. He was a student at Wichita State University from 1979 until 1985, when he graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in communication. Les Anderson was one of his professors there.
He wrote some great pieces for me. What a brilliant guy, trapped in a body like that.
David has never let his body stop him from achieving his dreams. Since graduating, David has pursued a career as a freelance writer. His columns have appeared in a number of newspapers, including the Wichita Eagle, the Ark Valley News, and his hometown paper, the Logan Republican. Les Anderson helped him write a column for the Valley Center newspaper as well.
He's an astute political person. He really is on top, particularly as an advocate for people with disabilities. And he's written some extremely good, insightful columns, op-ed pieces for the Wichita Eagle and other publications. He was good, and you don't have to always agree with him, but he made you think. When they need somebody who can provide clarity of thought on an issue involving maybe people with disabilities, they will frequently call on David, and I know they respect him, and they respect his writing.
Rather than wallow in what he cannot do, David treats his disability as a mere inconvenience, patiently trying to express his thoughts to people like me who desperately struggle to understand him.
He doesn't talk a lot either because of the struggles he has, but when he does talk, you listen, it means something.
Although for some, David can be hard to understand in person, you won't have a hard time understanding the deep, penetrating thoughts he expresses through his poetry.
Have you read any of his poetry?
Absolutely. His is heartfelt. Not that all poetry isn't.
One of his gifts is found in a poem titled A Me Inside, which gives you a glimpse into David's soul.
There's a me inside, a person hidden, one who isn't sarcastic, cynical, cold. There's a me inside, warm, loving, lonely. A man who sees his youth vanishing and who's seen his innocence crushed and crumpled casually by the only woman he ever loved. There's a me inside, a man wise enough to know that despite being hurt, he must love. He must love. He must love. Yes, there's a me inside, longing to be schmaltzy, dizzily in love, instead of being detached, objective, cool-headed, dead. There's a me inside who aches to give his folks a grandchild, a reflection of their love and grace. There's a me inside who longs to wake beside a woman and whisper, "I love you." There's a me inside.
David put a collection of his verses like this one into a book called The Briefcase Symphony. Another of his works, called I, the Miracle, gives you some insight into how David feels about his life.
You know, he constantly amazes people, I think. When they, maybe not just when they meet him, but when they read what he's written or genuinely listen to what he has to say.
Many of David's poems give us a window into his life, a place most of us have no concept about.
"I am a miracle," I said. They laughed. "You are broken, mangled at birth. A drunken God made you and thrust you upon an unwanting world. I am a miracle. You are worthless with palsied limbs, fit for naught for begging. A pox on the fool who sired you and the woman that bore you. I am a miracle, a son of God, friend of Jesus. My body I love now, even as I will when it is raised. My body, my mangled, rebellious body, houses my soul, my lovely soul, created for God and bound to Him through His sacrament. I am a miracle." Most scoffed and left, but one stayed and said, "I too am a miracle."
Despite everything David has to overcome, he refuses to waste time feeling sorry for himself.
As David will tell you, he's fortunate.
And believe it or not, David would not trade places with any of us. Les says a few years ago he invited David to come to one of his classes.
One of my students asked him, "Have you ever been frustrated or have you ever been mad or jealous of somebody who's able-bodied?" And he said no. It was a great question from the student, and of course David thought for a little while. He said no immediately, but then he considered what he was going to say, and he said, "No, I would not be any other way." Yeah, he wouldn't be David Rundle, was what he said. I am who I am.